On the frame? Cool. Great. I'm Douglas Wagner. I'm a spokesperson with the King County Prosecuting Attorney's Office. We're here today to give an update on an arrest that was made this morning related to an Auburn street racing and drifting investigation, and share updates about charges that were filed today by the King County Prosecuting Attorney's Office. I'm joined here today by King County Prosecuting Attorney Dan Satterberg, leadership from Auburn Police Department, Kent Police Department, and the Washington State Patrol, and as well as members of the Regional Racing Task Force. So to kind of kick things off, I'm going to turn it over to King County Prosecuting Attorney Dan Satterberg.
Good afternoon. On November 27th, 2020, two young women lost their lives not far from this courthouse due to illegal street racing. I'm joined today by the parents of one of the young victims, Makenna Heustis, who was 19 when she was killed, and a 23-year-old victim named Acosta was the other young woman who lost her life that day. We had charged the driver who had run into them during this illegal street race. Today we are charging the promoter of this event, a man named Jerick Judd. Mr. Judd was arrested this morning, held on $100,000 bail, and he has been charged with 2 counts of vehicular homicide as an accomplice to this. It's quite clear that this phenomenon of street racing, of drift racing, of illegal racing would not have happened. These young women would not have died that night but for the actions of this promoter, Mr. Judd. This is the first time that we've used an accomplice statute in this way in a vehicular homicide. But it underscores the very danger to public safety, very danger to every spectator who is attracted to these events. With me, behind me, are members of the regional street racing team here, Regional Racing Task Force, and they can answer some of your questions about this phenomenon in general. But it is clear that the social media has been used to attract people to various sites, and it continued to happen even after this terrific tragedy where 2 young women lost their life. We will allege that the promoter, Mr. Judd, continued to try to have and did have additional illegal street racing even after he was aware of the death of these young women, and he knew at least one of the victims as well, and it did not deter him. So this is, as I say, a first of its kind prosecution. We hope that people will understand that promoting illegal racing is it makes you just as complicit as actually participating in the race. You don't have to drive the car if you promote it. This was nothing but a reckless driving festival where people were brought into this particular part of Auburn and encouraged to drive in a way that put all of the onlookers at risk, and what a terrible tragedy it was. So we'll talk a little bit about the Regional Racing Task Force and more about the investigation of this case, and I'll be happy to come back and answer some questions. But right now I want to turn it over to State Patrol Captain Ron Mead for additional comments about the Regional Racing Task Force.
Good morning. My name is Ron Mead. I'm a captain with the Washington State Patrol. Oversee field operations here in King County. This street racing task force was spurred really by the frequency of intersection and freeway takeovers that we saw proliferate the region going back many months, really at the beginning of COVID, I think, where it really started having impacts. These events are not only crime, they're inherently dangerous, not only for those that are participating, but those that are observing and uninvolved motorists alike. These are just in very dangerous events that tragically we've seen too many injuries and far too many deaths as a result. To date, we've referred hundreds of charges on 69 people resulting from these investigations, both for the participation and for the promoting of these events. And our efforts will continue to address this in a region-wide approach. I'm very proud of the partnership, the collaboration between the State Patrol and our local law enforcement partners across Pierce, King, and Snohomish counties, in trying to address this more collaboratively from a regional approach rather than a jurisdictional approach. Because one thing we have found is that they go from events in Kent to events in Des Moines to events in Tacoma and back to events in South Snohomish County with ease. And so we've had to adapt our approach to them in trying to first and foremost deter this type of behavior, then disperse the behavior, and then, when appropriate, intervene and make arrests. And as I said, we've arrested 69 people, or referred charges 69 people for the various crimes associated with these events, and very appreciative of the partnership, particularly with the Kent Police Department, and I'm going to introduce Chief Ralph Padilla.
Good afternoon. So as Captain Mead alluded to and Mr. Satterberg said, these aren't just random acts of fun and entertainment. This isn't harmless, youthful activities. These are serious crimes. Every year we've seen people lose their lives in fatality collisions. We've seen property crimes, robberies, shootings, homicide, most recently in King County last year. So these are serious issues and we take them very seriously. I'm very proud of the fact that we collaborated in this region, something that we're well known for in law enforcement down here, led by the State Patrol, but strongly partnered by all the Valley agencies coming together. And I want to take time to recognize some of our experts. We have Sergeant Josh Bava from the Kent Police Department and Trooper Cleve from the Washington State Patrol, who are our lead investigators on this and really did the work to put together this incredible case. I hope today is a clear message and a strong message to would-be racers and wannabe attendees that we are paying attention. We take it very seriously. We will work tirelessly to find out who you are, and we will prosecute you to the fullest extent of the law. So please, let's not have any more of these. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. And I want to make it clear that a week after this double fatality, this double vehicular homicide, we did charge the driver of that car. His name is Rondell Hicks, and he is scheduled for trial December 7th right here at the Mailing Regional Justice Center. Since that time, though, the investigators have spent a lot of time going through social media and finding out who is organizing this event. And we have landed with the arrest this morning of Mr. Judd, who we believe is one of the major organizers of illegal street racing in our area and is responsible morally and legally for the death of these two young women. So with that, I'd be happy to take any questions and field it with our crew here. Sure.
Just a quick housekeeping, I guess, question for myself. We did not cover this particular incident. Was this the owner of the car who also arrested? Was not the owner of the car that was driving that night, correct? Does that sound right?
So the driver, Mr. Hicks, has been charged and is waiting trial, and today is the promoter of the event.
Right. The owner of the car.
I don't know about the owner of the car, and with me is Gary Ernsdorf, senior deputy prosecutor in our case. So can you answer it? Yeah, please do. Okay.
Hi, I'm Colby Crossley with the Auburn Police Department. I'm the public information officer. What happened on November 27th was a street racing event that had just begun, and the driver of the vehicle was not in fact the owner of the vehicle. He hopped into a car that wasn't his, started doing donuts, lost control of that vehicle, and hit the two young females.
Any other questions for any of the assembled crew here?
What specific charges are you filing against the gentleman you arrested?
Mr. Judd, the promoter, is facing 2 counts of vehicular homicide and under an accomplice liability theory, which means that he promoted it, or he advanced it, he encouraged it. All of those things make you an accomplice to crime. He's being held on $100,000 bail. If convicted of these 2 counts, he faces a standard range of 95 to 125 months in prison.
Do you know how many of these events you promoted before this fatal event? And are there other sort of big promoters out there responsible for most of these? Or
I think I'm going to turn that over to Captain Mead.
Trooper Chase Van Cleve, Washington State Patrol. What was your question one more time, sir?
I'm trying to get a sense of how many of these promoters there are out there, and how many other events this particular promoter.
As far as the number of events that Judd has promoted himself, we know of this one and at least a handful of other events. We're still, as we go through this investigation, uncovering different events that he did promote. This goes back all the way to November of last year, which is when this event happened. And since then, he has consistently promoted events, if not large planned events, pop-up events where they would, throw up a spot in a location and go race or participate in drifting or racing. So we're considering those as events as well and investigating all of them. So it's a number for him. As far as the number of organizers within our region, I don't have an exact number. There is, a handful of people who have been already arrested and contacted by our task force. But each time we make an arrest, there's new people who want to continue this, and so there's new people who are coming up and promoting events of their own.
What's the time frame for the 69 arrests? Is that since the launch of the task force?
Yeah, so this task force started back in March, the beginning of March, and since then we've had, I think it was 69 suspects that we've arrested or forward charges on.
Briefly, since the formation of this task force, maybe not seeing it as much as we used to. I guess my question is this working and what kind of message is the task force sending?
No, I think we believe that there is an impact that's being made in our region. We see a lot less events. And I think as we see accountability raised on the people who are participating, we're seeing the willingness to go out and brazenly break the law and put lives in danger go down, which is the goal of this task force because it's ultimately keeping people safe. And so to that point, that is the message from all of our agencies, our prosecutors and everybody alike, is that we want people to be safe on our roadways. We want people to follow the laws and not put people intentionally at risk by going out, blocking intersections, driving recklessly and driving dangerously, knowing that the risk is ultimately taking someone's life. And so for us, that's the message, is that we are holding everybody in that equation accountable.
It happens so fast, I know you've talked in the past about just the sheer number of people that show up sometimes at this event, so nipping them in the bud is key, and it sounds like that has been happening. Are you able to, I guess, intercept the messaging, get to some of the organizers before the events happen? What does, I guess, proactive rather than reactive look like?
Yeah, without talking too much about the tactics and things that we're using, we're trying every approach that we can. As Captain Mead said earlier, our first goal is to prevent these events from happening. And so if it's within our power to stop people from gathering, then that's what we want to do. And whether that's working through social media, working with people that we've arrested to give us information, or whatever the tactic is that we can use, we will do everything we can to stop an event from happening. Because if it happens, there's the dangers to the public, the people who are participating, as well as the officers who respond, and we want to eliminate that danger by stopping it first.
How cooperative are the people, in particular the organizers that you arrested so far?
Cooperative? I think we haven't run into, a lot of resistance once the time comes for when we've arrested anybody, but I don't think they're willingly coming out, and no one's willingly coming out and telling us that they are the organizers. It takes a good investigation and good work by this entire task force. And so when we come forward with the facts and we talk to them about it, or we arrest them and we have these interviews, I think we've had great success with them not coming back and doing it more. And for us, stopping it at that point is a win and a success, because we don't see, at this point, repeat offenders who are organizing these events.
Are they leading you to other suspects?
We through the web of everything, we have multiple suspects that we're finding and learning about. And like I said, every time we make an arrest, there's new people that come up. But ultimately, the point, and to answer your question, is that after we've arrested many of these organizers, their activity has stopped, which is ultimately the goal for everyone who's on this task force.
Do you know how long has this kind of activity been going on? Gathering where they go, it's been in the social system, right? How far back did that start?
I don't know. I think many of us up here for the longest time have been aware of the races that have taken place in this region, dating back many years. The new phenomenon of taking over intersections and blocking intersections and doing donuts, that's fairly new, and that's why we've had to adapt our approach in using some of these tactics and working together regionally to attack this problem.
Quick question for Dan.
Perfect. Thank you.
When we talk about the accomplice statute, when would we typically see that apply? I guess I'm trying to give another example as to when this charge may be applied.
So whenever the accomplice liability statute in the law behind it in Washington says that a person is equally guilty as the principal when they solicit, command, encourage, promote, advance, anything that sort of pushes forward this plan. So we'll see it in homicides sometimes, and we'll see it in robberies and other things where there's been some planning beforehand, before the crime occurs, and the principal is guilty and so is the person that set it up. And that's the point of these charges, is that this event would not have happened but for Mr. Judd's promotion of it. It was particularly callous that right after 2 women lost their lives at this event, that he continued to promote these events. And a lot of that is detailed in the certification for determination of probable cause, which you should have gotten or we can send to you. So he was a remorseless promoter of this illegal street racing, even after it was so vividly demonstrated how deadly it could be. And that's why he's facing criminal charges today.
Whether it's street racing, robbery, murders, how often have you used this statute?
This is the first time that we've used the accomplice liability statute in a vehicular homicide case that I'm aware of. But this is a unique set of facts. This was a festival of reckless driving that was going from community to community, putting a lot of people at risk. And people would show up attracted by the excitement so they could take, cell phone video of this very dangerous driving. But what I don't think people understood is that if they were anywhere near the scene of this, they were also at tremendous risk. And it took the death of 2 young women to really drive that point home. But this racing task force will continue. And we want to get the message out that if you're involved in promoting these events and somebody gets hurt, you too could be held criminally liable.
Aside from the racing, though, I'm just trying to get a sense of how often this statute is used.
The accomplice liability statute is used quite regularly in the criminal law when there is a conspiracy or when there are more than one person involved in setting up something, often used in robberies or in drug delivery cases or that sort of thing. But like I said, this is the first of its kind that I know of anywhere in the state to be used to try to deter illegal street racing. I do not. Gary, are you aware of any other state that's used this? The question was, has this accomplice liability theory been used in any other state that you're aware of? This is a Senior Deputy Prosecutor Gary Ernsdorf who's been working on the investigation since the tragedy of last November.
This is a problem that's not unique to King County or Washington State. We've seen these type of takeover events occurring in neighboring states, California, East Coast, West Coast. And we looked around and tried to figure out what other jurisdictions were doing, and we couldn't see any examples of going after a promoter in this sense. But again, we looked at the accomplice liability statute. It is a statute that we routinely use to charge those participants in a crime who may not be directly involved with the criminal activity, and found it fully applied to these circumstances and facts here. And we use accomplice liability to charge getaway drivers and other people that are involved in the process of a crime but may not be the participant that results in the death or the actual robbery. But when you have a conspiracy like this with numerous people involved, they're all guilty under the accomplice liability. And so these facts fit the law very well, and we hope to send a strong deterrent message out that if you're responsible for promoting these and encouraging these dangerous takeover events, we're going to come after you with criminal charges.
I just wanted to say one thing. Behind these charges, while we're focusing on the individual that organized this event, there's the death of 2 young women. These are families that are forever changed as a result of these tragedies. And we should never lose sight on the victims of this. It's very easy to get focused on the charge, the uniqueness of the situation. But I want everybody to remember behind these are families that are forever changed, loved ones that will never have a connection with somebody they love. And I'm glad that they're here to join us. They put a face to the real tragedy that this creates. And it really puts behind what we're trying to accomplish, the reason we're trying to do it. And that is so that families aren't going into another holiday season with the loss of a loved one. That's really what this is all about. It's about saving lives. And it's about, and I'm very grateful for the prosecutor's office willingness to hold those people, not only that are participating in these events, accountable, but those that are promoting them and organizing them. Because were it not for the organization, if it's not for the promoting of them, then they don't have anywhere to do this criminal behavior. And that's what this is. It's criminal behavior. It's a crime. And thank you for being here, both of you.
If there are no other questions, thank you for coming today. And
Chief, I know you have an impound law here in Kent. Pierce County, a couple of municipalities, they're adopting something that'll be executive if Pierce County wants to make this a countywide thing. How successful has that been? I know we were here on the ground, I think it was late last year, a lot of cars being towed, people being arrested. Has that seemed to work for Kent, or anything else working for Kent that could be applied elsewhere?
I think it's a multitude of things. The impound leverage is of assistance to us. Obviously, it helps us in the moment. But the longer term investigations, the real work, the day in, day out, the countless search warrants and processes and interviews that go to locating and apprehending 69 individuals is really where it matters. For all too often, these races are ones where people can be anonymous, right? We don't know who they are. There's hundreds of people. Well, there's work now, there's investigators now, there's a process now where we're much better at identifying who they are and then holding them accountable. So I think that's the bigger impact here. And I did get the trooper's name wrong. It's Trooper Chase, so forgive me.
thank you, Chief. And thank you all for coming. If you need anything more, Douglas Wagner is our Public Information Officer from the Prosecutor's Office. We also have Auburn, Kent, and WSP here, and we'll keep you posted as this case goes through the system. Thank you.